There's a recruiter in an office somewhere just listening to like hundreds of hours of podcasts.
The new show too. I'm Joe.
I'm Alan.
And I'm Dan.
And we're back, and we've got a load of questions for you. You can submit those questions either via email, show@thenew.show, or on Twitter, tweet at us at AskNewShow. And do mention if you want to remain anonymous, otherwise we might read your first name out. If you want to support creation of these episodes, you can go to patreon.com/AskNewShow, or there's some other ways, just go to thenew.show. Right, so the first one then. If you could levitate, but it was as much physical effort as sprinting, how often would you do it?
Define levitate. Like, are we talking like David Blaine street magic? You can lift yourself off the ground like 1 inch, or are we talking like flying?
I knew you were going to ask that. So like Sindel from Mortal Kombat 3. So maybe like a few feet off the floor, and you could kind of float around a little bit, but not fly up into the clouds and stuff.
Also, you said something about sprinting. If it was like sprinting, are we talking the distance that you travel is like the distance that you travel sprinting, like 100 yards sprint is 100 yards in the air? Or is it duration? Is it like 100 yards would take you 20 seconds to sprint maybe, and that's 20 seconds is how long you could stay in the air?
No, I think you can stay in the air longer, but it's just that effort. So for however long you're in the air, it's like you're exerting as much effort as sprinting.
This sounds like a pretty raw deal. Like, what use is it to like just barely be off the ground? Like, it doesn't sound like an effective mode of transportation at all.
Well, I can think of a number of reasons why this would be useful. There's a limited set of circumstances where I would use this. I had to reach something off a very high shelf, and being able to just levitate a few feet off the ground and just grab it and then drop back to the floor and not be super out of breath as a result, rather than having to go and fetch a ladder or a step or something. I think that's a really super easy. Just being able to lift yourself up a little bit is like a super basic thing. That would be cool.
Or what if you're out in the woods and there's a big muddy puddle that's going to get all your shoes wet and you can just float over it?
Right. Or a fence that you need to hop over to get, into another field, from one field to another.
Yeah.
You could hop over a fence rather than climb over and get your clothes all dirty. You could just hop over the fence. And if it was a particularly high fence, maybe one of these 8-foot ones with barbed wire on the top, you could just hop straight over and you wouldn't be super out of breath, I don't think.
How often does hopping fences come up in your daily life, Alan?
A lot fucking more often if I could levitate.
Yeah, exactly.
That seems like a pretty weird use case to me. Yeah, I can't think of when this would really be terribly useful, so I would say nearly never. I would be like something that it's like, I guess we can do that, but why?
I'm disappointed, Dan. I couldn't stop coming up with reasons why this would be useful. Like, you know how sometimes when you walk somewhere and there's a fence either side of you and you have to go the long way, you have to walk all the way along a fence and then through a gate and then all the way back the other side of the fence. You can just go whoop and hop over it, like getting into a park or something.
My city's designed in a way where you can just walk to things.
Oh yeah, you don't have proper outdoors with green, do you?
Oh, we're the city of trees, man. We got tons of trees, but it's just easy to get to places.
What if you just wanted to hop over a tree?
Why would you do that? For why?
Delightful.
For what reason would you do this?
So I was thinking, what about if you're taking photos? It would give you a completely different perspective. If there was like a group photo you're taking, you could just lift yourself up 8 feet or 10 or 20 feet in the air and get more people in and move backwards, rather than you having to try and find a hill or a set of steps to get a good vantage point looking down over the subject. You could just lift yourself up in the air and then take a shot. I think it would be fantastic for photography.
Yeah, I guess that's interesting. But if you're exerting the same amount of effort as sprinting, like, would you be able to be stable enough wouldn't it be like, I'm fucking out of breath, like trying to take this photo up there?
I don't know. When you're sprinting, are you out of breath immediately you start your first step, or do you get out of breath as you? Well, yeah, me too. But yeah, I mean,
yeah, I get out of breath just standing up out of my chair.
It's getting me out of breath thinking about it, to be honest. Okay, so I had another example. What if you're at a concert and you want to get a good photo of the band, or you want to see the band better, and there's all these people with people on their shoulders in front of you, you could just like jump up in the air and stay up in the air for a little bit and watch the band from a little bit higher up, better vantage point.
I feel like there's a direct correlation between the usefulness of this ability and your athleticism, of which I have zero.
Yeah, I fall into that category as well, but maybe it'd be an opportunity to get fit. Like, I don't see the point in running, really. You just get to the same place just a tiny bit faster. But going upwards, that's like a magical new thing that humans have never done before. So I think maybe I would lose a bit of weight through sprinting up rather than along, maybe.
That's not flying. That's sprinting up.
If you could choose one piece of software or a service to go open source, what would it be? And this is from Toin, I think is the name.
I'd say Android.
Damn it.
I can hear the furious typing now of like, but Alan, Android is open source.
Yeah, it's not. I would say everything on your phone, like all the Google apps, all of the drivers for the Wi-Fi, drivers for the sensors, everything. If the whole thing on the phone was open source, if it was just a fully open source platform, I think that would be beneficial. I'm not sure if all the apps on top of that need to be open source as well. I think it sets a good precedent if the platform is. Maybe it would invite more open source developers to bring their apps to the platform. I don't know. Maybe that's a rose-tinted spectacle view of the world. But I think if at least everything that made... And forget about all the intellectual property nonsense and people trying to hide all their GPU driver secrets. Like, forget all that exists. If just all the Android devices that I'm looking at right now were completely open source and all the drivers were, it would be possible for older devices to run potentially newer versions of Android because people could forward port drivers to newer kernels. And it might make it easier for people to port Android to newer devices as well, because they'd be able to get hold of the drivers more easily.
I was going to say Google mobile services, Google Play services, all the proprietary bullshit that they add on top of Android open source project, just to see, not personally, but because I know someone else would really dig into it and see all the shady shit that Google's up to and hopefully put a stop to it.
I think you've got to decide whether your question is, what if it was all open source from the start? In which case, you would like to hope they don't release a bunch of open source software from the start that's shady from the start. This is assuming there's any shady shit in there, right? Or are you saying, due to some new legislation somewhere in the world, suddenly all mobile phone operating systems have to be open source? Let's just say that's the rule. And so from the next release of every operating system, all the drivers and all the base platform needs to be open source, in which case I suspect any of those companies that are providing that stuff would scramble like hell to remove any shady shit that was in there, or do whatever they can to mitigate the discovery of the shady shit, if there is any of that going on.
I don't know. I think I have less faith in humanity because people still use Facebook, like no matter what is exposed about them or what comes out. And like, even if all of the source code was out there and people were like, here's the line in Facebook source code where they're doing this horrific thing with your data, people would still use it, I think. It just seems like there's so many people that just don't care. I don't know if thing being open source would actually impact like what apps and services people use.
Well, I think maybe Joe, incompetent idiot user, might not know and might not care, but I think there'd be enough people who do care that the company making the product would listen, maybe.
I've never told you my middle names before.
I do think that's a good one, though, the Android and Google Play services kind of stuff. But yeah, when I was thinking about this, I was kind of thinking, what are the things that I use that are still proprietary? And then I don't know how much good it would really do for those things to become open source. Certain apps and things like that. Like if Slack was open source right now, like what good would that do? Would that really matter? It seems like maybe probably what would be better is to have like the protocol be open source so that people could implement like their own Slack clients. Like that would probably be a big one, or something like AirPlay would open up competition for a lot of devices, or, you know, these kind of like protocols that are used to lock you into these ecosystems, right? Like that seems to me like the direction that I would go, is not necessarily open sourcing like a specific set of software, but open sourcing the way the software talks to the other software.
Has there been anything in your life that you regret starting but never finishing? And do you plan to get around to it?
I would say every workout program that I've started ever. It's a pretty good one. I do want to finish them. But I like literally just started one 2 weeks ago, and then I rolled my ankle yesterday. And so now I'm like, shit, like I'm going to fall off. I know it.
You'll have to look up chair exercise or something.
Yeah. So I'm trying to stay positive and be like, no, like I'm going to keep working hard, and, you know, as soon as my ankle's better, I'm going to jump back into it. But it's just, you know, these kind of things, it's like when a vacation or a conference or whatever comes up, or you have some kind of injury, it's like really, really hard to get back onto a program. And I've had something happen, like every time I try to start one of these programs, something happens. And I really, really, really want to finish one, because, you know, your fitness is important, and like taking care of your body, you know, it's the only one you got. So, you know, I want to do it. I really do.
What about you, Joe? Have you got any fitness regimes you haven't finished?
I haven't got any fitness regimes I haven't finished. I've never fucking started one. But I did start making an album once with my band of the time. It was my idea. I said, right, we've got access to this studio for free, and let's record an album, and I'll mix it all, and it'll be great. And I just never finished it. I don't know, we got it all recorded, and then I started to just like not really want to be in that band anymore, and started looking around for other stuff to do. And those files are still sitting somewhere, and I do plan to finish it one day, but deep down, I know I won't. And I feel bad about it from time to time. And so the anonymous person who asked this question got me feeling really bad. So thanks for that.
Mine taunts me every time I'm on a hangout with anyone or any kind of video chat, because it's behind me on the desk, and it's my 3D printer that I started and I haven't finished it. I got it for my birthday 2 years ago.
I thought you were going to say 2 months ago.
No, it wouldn't bother me so much if it was 2 months ago. I think it was 2 years ago. And I, with all the vigor and vim, I put the video player on my laptop, and I spread it all out over the kitchen table, and I sat there and put it all together. It took hours and hours to put it all together. It is mostly put together. Like, it does functionally look like a 3D printer. And you would be forgiven for thinking Alan owns a 3D printer, because I see it on every video he ever has. It's right behind him. And so I see it in the camera like, every time right behind me, like sitting on my shoulder, gnawing away at me. Alan, finish this 3D printer. But I got stuck on part of it, and I put it to one side and then never took it out of being to one side. But yeah, I should do.
I'm sure that there's someone out there who will offer to do a hangout with you and talk you through how to put it all together and get it working.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Like 3D printer club. And, you know, but it's not technically hard. I'm not super good at electronics, but I was really worried about it, because I stopped when it got to the power supply, because the guy who was building it was like talking about the basic kit that you get for the 3D printer contains all the motors and the parts and the plastics and everything. But then when it gets to the power supply, they're like, oh, it's a cheap, crappy Chinese power supply. Don't use that. It'll burn your house down. And so at that point, I stopped, and I was like, okay, I need to put a fused switch on this thing because it doesn't come with a fused switch. It just comes with like 2 bare wires you shove in the wall. And so I thought, I should probably sort that out, but I've never got around to sorting it out. So yeah, I probably should.
The first rule of 3D Printer Club is put the fucking thing together first.
Yes.
How often do you try to help someone online only to have that person get pissed off when they don't like your troubleshooting questions? Do you continue to be helpful or go silent? And this is from Barn.
I feel like this happens pretty frequently for anybody who maintains any kind of issue tracker, right? And people are like, well, just fix it. And I can't fix it until you answer these questions. I'm trying, I can't reproduce the issue. So I'm trying to get some more information from you. It's funny because a lot of times people just don't even respond. So it's like, guess we're going to close the issue because nobody can reproduce it. And the original issue poster didn't want to follow up and give us any information about how to reproduce it.
It's difficult because finding bugs is hard. Finding good bugs is even harder. And I often think about the poor people who work in, car analogy coming, who work in places that repair cars, and people take their car in and go, it doesn't work or it's making a funny noise. And they have to try and tease out of the driver what's actually going wrong. And sometimes the driver isn't equipped with the vocabulary or the knowledge of the internals of how the car works to be able to describe what's going wrong with the car. They might say there's a knocking noise, but not know exactly where that's coming from, whether it's, interior or one of the 4 wheels, or whether it's coming from the engine bay, which could help the mechanic to isolate the problem and diagnose it quicker. I mean, it's a little bit different because you're paying them by the hour. So, they're motivated to fix the thing, but also it helps them even if they take ages to diagnose it sometimes. Whereas you as a volunteer software developer trying to help someone for which there's no monetary exchange, you're only going to lose in this contract.
I think it's not even that difficult though. Like, you don't need someone to be technically, you just need to tell them like, what did they do to make the thing happen? When someone's like, it just doesn't work. And you're like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, what were you doing? And to use your car analogy, like, all they have to say is like, well, it makes a funny noise when I turn left. And like, that's way more information than most people even want to submit. And it's not like the old days where it's just like a big blank form. Like, we have an issue template that's like, describe the steps that, we're doing. And well, like, what did you expect to happen? What happened instead? And people just go and completely delete the issue template and leave it entirely blank. And then just file a thing that's just like, it's broke. It's like, okay, how much can we help you here?
Yeah. I feel like this question was directed at me because the person who asking it was involved in this with me recently. So I've had this happen twice in the last week. I saw someone ask a question on Twitter and I responded with a question asking, why do you need that? They were saying, why does this thing not work on Ubuntu? And I said, well, why do you need that? And their response was to reply to me, but I didn't see the reply because they immediately blocked me because I asked a question that they didn't like. They immediately blocked me. And then someone else, I think the author of this question, replied further and said, well, actually, I think Alan asked a reasonable question. And I thought, what? I haven't seen any replies. I don't know. And I lost some context. So I had to jump on Twitter as a different account so that I could see this guy's rant at me. And then, obviously he blocked me. But I thought, do you know what? I actually do know the answer to this. So I replied to the question poster. I said, actually, I think I know why this is. It was because we've removed Python 2 from Ubuntu 20.04 and that piece of software isn't available hasn't been ported to Python 3. And I think that information got relayed despite me being blocked. I think the information got relayed to the original poster. The original poster still has me blocked, but then in their final parting shot said, oh, my wife died last month, so I'm a little bit out of sorts. I'm like, well, I can't do anything then. I can't complain about this interaction at all. You know, if someone is in such a low place that they're not, you know, going to be able to respond positively to support questions, and they take it out on me by ranting at me and blocking me, you know, there's not a lot of places I can go with that.
That was a bit of a strange way to phrase it, though. Well, why do you need it? That could come across a bit dickish.
Okay, so the question was, why is Yum not installable on Ubuntu? Now, Yum is the package manager for RPM-based systems.
Yes.
And I genuinely didn't understand why you want the RPM package manager on an Ubuntu Debian-based system. Now, this guy could have been a fucking clueless idiot and just wanted Yum because he's seen a tutorial that says Yum install whatever, right?
Right.
And so the answer might have been, oh, I followed a tutorial. It sent me down the wrong path. But he made an assumption that I was asking a stupid question, and I was, you know, telling him he shouldn't do it. I genuinely had no idea why he wanted to install that piece of software. Like, why the fuck would you? And I didn't know. And so he did explain it once I managed to reveal his tweets via logging in via a different account. And I found out why. You know, there was some technical reason, Docker or something didn't work or something. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, I have had the occasion where, in fact, it happened again over the weekend, where people have a go at me because of my responses. And I think, I'm giving my time. It's a Sunday afternoon. I'm answering your technical support questions. I don't have to do this. I'm not being paid to do this. And I'm the bad guy. And so, yes, that I probably should stay off the internet for the entire weekend and not get engrossed in conversations with randos on the internet.
Yeah, I got to strongly disagree with you, Joe. I mean, this has a whole like name for it, you know, the XY problem, where solutions that users come up with are often very convoluted and weird. And a big part of diagnosing things is often finding out like what is the actual problem they're trying to solve. That often ends up with you having to ask them, okay, well, why are you trying to do this thing? Because oftentimes the thing that they're trying to do just sounds like, you know, I'm not sure what problem you're trying to solve, but this is a really complicated thing you're trying to do.
And I see this a lot in support channels where someone will jump into an IRC channel and say, I'm trying to do this. What's the device driver name, or what's the path to this file? And people are like, in their minds, they think, well, that's a weird thing to do. Why on earth would you want to do that? What are you hoping the result to be by doing that? And so they'll ask the question, why are you doing that? And the question poser will often get really agitated and think you're being arrogant and trying to school them on the right way to do something. And just tell me the name of the file. Just tell me. I asked a question. I asked for the name of this file. Just tell me the fucking name of the file. And while you might know the answer and you might want to give the answer, you also want to know, you know, are they going to use this information to shoot themselves in the foot? Are you going to see them again in 10 minutes time once they've done what it is you've helped them do, and they come back and go, well, I've wiped my partition and I blame you entirely for this. Like, you just don't know how that's going to pan out. So you kind of have to, as Dan says, start from first principles and do the problem diagnosis and like, where are you trying to get to? What's the path you're trying to take and why are you doing this? And yeah, some people, sometimes arrogant pricks on the internet, don't like people asking questions. They just want you to answer my fucking question. Answer it right now. You know, it doesn't matter that you're a volunteer. It doesn't matter that you're not being paid to do this. You just need to answer my damn question. And I hate that. And it's prevalent in Linux forums all over the place. And I fucking hate it.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, too, when we find out why someone's trying to do something or what the actual problem is, then we can come up with a better solution. And maybe it's not just like a one-time solution for that one person. Like maybe that leads to a new feature or a design change. And that's a lot more useful to way more people than just trying to hotfix this one person's one problem that they're looking at right now.
Well, unlike you two, I don't get paid to solve people's problems ever. And so I only ever do it just here and there. And the second part of the question, do you continue to be helpful or go silent? The answer is I go silent. If people don't want to answer my follow-up questions, then I just And I'm just out. I just ghost them, basically. But I suppose you can't really do that if part of your job is helping people solve problems.
So over the weekend, there was a lengthy thread on Reddit, and someone pointed out that there was a flaw in a product that I support, right? And I said, oh, I think that's fixed. Like, I actually said, I think that's fixed. Not, that is fixed, you're an idiot. I said, I think that's fixed. And I cited a forum post and a bug report. I said, I think that's fixed. Now, maybe I misunderstood, right? But I said, I think it's fixed. He got super cross with me, super angry, called me a liar, and said it's not fixed and it would take you no time at all. Circle the part of this that you don't understand, and got really arrogant with me. And I thought, you prick. And I didn't look into it too much further because it's Sunday, and I said, look, I'll look at it when I'm being paid to be called a liar by randos on the internet, which kind of got his back up, apparently. And he gave me the old, don't you know who I am, kind of thing. You don't know who you're talking to. And I was like, no, and it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter your race, religion, creed, sexuality. I don't care. Like, you're having a technical problem and I'm trying to help you solve that technical problem. I just want to know the details. Just give me the facts, man. And, he got really angry, and he used the word plonk, which I think is a technical term for you're muted now and I will not see your things ever again, but also made me realize just how old the guy was, because nobody under the age of about 60 says the word plonk on the internet. So, hey ho. Turns out he was a NASA scientist and one of the original Apple engineers. No, I didn't know who the hell he was, and it doesn't really matter. But someone arguing with me on the internet and calling me a liar doesn't make me want to help them any further. But I did try. So, yeah, there's only so much you can do.
I was waiting for it to be like Mark or Richard Stallman or something.
Well, after they said, you don't know who I am, I did say, well, you're not my wife or my boss, so no, I don't care. And then I went looking to find out who they were, just out of curiosity. I was like, 73-year-old man who's got quite a long history in computing, but also can be a bit of a prick on Reddit. So, well done.
What is your worst or most expensive destroyed equipment event?
I guess it depends on how you define equipment, because the first thing that comes to my mind is like a car breaking down.
Yeah, true.
It's hard to feel like there's anything else that's more financially devastating than a car just breaking down and being like, oh, shit. Where am I going to come up with the money to replace this vehicle?
Yeah, that's something I'd not considered really, because usually it's not your fault if your car breaks down. So I suppose it does count as equipment though. So yeah, I suppose we're all going to say, yeah, when my car broke down and cost me, well, like when my alternator broke and it cost me $1,000. And bear in mind, my car is very old and shit and not worth $1,000.
What about if you drive your car into a telegraph pole and destroy it? Or what if you're driving along the motorway at exactly 70 miles an hour and you drive over a exhaust back box that's fallen off the car in front and destroy both tires on one side of your car and the wheels that those tires are attached to?
This sounds oddly specific.
Yeah, this sounds like you're blinking while you're driving again.
Yeah. I think the first one, it depends how many ales you've had.
None.
No, if you crash into a telegraph pole, it's almost certainly your fault, unless someone ran you off the road or something. But if you hit something on the motorway, then that's not your fault.
I mean, yes. But the fact remains that these were, on both occasions, very expensive pieces of equipment. And in my younger days, I was somewhat of a reckless driver. And I had a blue Opel Kadett, which was my girlfriend's car that I bought off her, and then managed to drive into a telegraph pole at relatively high speed and utterly destroyed the car, which wasn't good. But the Ford Mondeo that I ran over a exhaust back box on the M1, that I was perfectly fine about because it was a company car. And there was my friend Dave in the passenger seat and someone from work. We were heading home from a Christmas party in the back seat. And I pulled over at the side of the motorway with these destroyed wheels and destroyed tires. And I phoned the recovery company. And the woman in the back who'd been at the Christmas party as well was like, "You're remarkably calm about the fact that, we had this near-death experience of like hitting this thing on the road." And I was quite blasé about it because it was a company car and I didn't really care. And I knew it would get fixed and it was fine. But when it's my own car, yeah, you're absolutely devastated when something like that happens. So yeah, it's all car related because they're the most expensive things I've ever destroyed. I've not knocked down a house or, blown up a factory or anything like that.
I would say computer related for me, that probably the most memorable instance of a computer being destroyed was the very first laptop I had. And I was, me and my little brother got the idea to rearrange his room for some reason, and he had like a TV on top of like a computer desk that should never have been up there. And it was like a giant like CRT honker, and the laptop was on the computer desk, and we decided to just move it all without trying to disassemble anything in any way. And the TV, of course, fell off of the top of this computer desk right onto my laptop, just with the corner even just right into it, So that was the end of it.
Mine's fairly similar to yours, Dan. It involves my first laptop, my first proper laptop that was mine, I suppose. And when I bought that laptop, I was doing all right money-wise, and I loved that thing. I took it all over with me, all over Europe and everything, and made a lot of music with it and everything, and I absolutely fucking loved that laptop. And then one day it just wouldn't turn on. And I was like, what? And I tried everything I thought to fix it, and it just would not turn on. And I was gutted because when I got it, it had, I think, a whopping 80 gigabyte hard drive that had been partitioned into two 40 gigabytes, one for the system, one for the data. And I always meant to reinstall Windows on it and get just one big partition and not have the problems that came along with things filling up. And I was really gutted that it died before I got round to that. And I was always thinking to myself, maybe if I'd done that, it wouldn't have been so stressed all the time, wouldn't have got so hot, and maybe it wouldn't have died. And so it just went in a cupboard somewhere or whatever, and I totally forgot about it. And then enough time elapsed that it had become completely old and obsolete and just too slow to do anything. And I remember one time I was there with my friend, and someone said, "Oh, my laptop won't work. Can you have a look at it?" And he said, I've seen this before. And he got some contact cleaner, like switch cleaner spray. Looks a bit like WD-40 with a straw and everything. And just a couple of squirts in there, and then it worked properly. And I didn't really think anything of it. And then a couple of days later, I said, let me borrow that spray. I'll bring it back tomorrow. Took it home, a little squirt into the laptop power, plugged it in, fucker turns on. And for about 4 years, it sat there dead, and I was devastated about it. And all I needed was like a 3 or 4 quid can of switch cleaner, and it would have brought it back to life, and it would have been useful in that time that it became obsolete.
So you've just reminded me of a computer error that I had myself, and I'm deliberating about whether to tell you this, because when I say it out loud, you'll think I'm some kind of computer fuckwit. But you made me feel better by not cleaning that switch, so that's good. I had a desk with a bunch of hard drives on it that were just loosely connected to a computer. They weren't in a case. They were just like piled up. And every so often they would overheat because they were just literally stacked on top of each other. And so I thought, I'll put something in between one drive and the next in order to create like some semblance of airflow between these drives. And I just reached for the nearest thing and put it in between the drives.
Fridge magnet.
Good guess, but no. A little while later, one of the drives failed, and I noticed that they were no longer all separated, but they were all squished back together again. And I thought, what's going on here? I could have sworn I put something in between these to separate them out. And the drive utterly failed. And I looked at it, and I was really confused by this sludge that was on it. And the reason why was because I'd used crayons to separate.
Oh, no.
And they'd obviously just melted and oozed crayon all over these drives. Why the hell did I use a crayon? How did I not think that was going to melt in these boiling hot drives? But yeah, so I lost some data that day.